On behalf of Hounds for Concealed Carry as their general counsel, we are calling on his resignation as well as the officer who was involved in the original incident.
You say it comes down to an issue of trust.
That's correct. There's really 2 points I'd like to make to your listeners. If you listen to his diatribe, one, throughout what he's stating, you can infer that he's agreeing with the officer's actions. Mm-hmm. At no point does he address those actions and label them inappropriate, which they clearly were. The second point is that he puts blame on CHL holders, on people who carry guns. I got a couple quotes here from it. At one point, he says that this is a symptom, of arming our population, literally arming our population, he says, with handguns. I don't know why that's a bad thing.
Well, and it was interesting because I agree with you, because the police chief himself called the behavior of Officer Harless wholly unacceptable and said it violates the rules and standards we demand of our officers. And as you said, here you have a council president that wants to make law-abiding gun owners the problem. And then he goes on, in his big rant on this radio show, he's talking about how someone packing a Ruger at 1:30 in the morning, that's not acceptable. And I don't care whether you're in a poor neighborhood or in a good neighborhood. You got to be able to defend yourself. And he obviously can't relate to somebody who's concerned about being a victim or who has already been a victim.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. At one point he says, and I quote, "We want to be protected," end quote. And he's referring to the police. Well, the police can't always be there. And then he goes on to say, well, why should we be able to carry guns in places that have prostitution and high crime? That's where we should be able to carry guns. That's where we should have them.
But again, it doesn't matter where you live these days.
Absolutely.
Nobody's immune to crime, so whether you're in a good or bad, but I know what you're saying exactly. And then he went on to say, you can blame our city. He was talking about people from out of state that are reacting to what happened with this officer stopping and pulling over a man who had a concealed carry permit. He says, you can blame our city, but you're next. That's what he told the caller.
Yeah, he said, as long as these laws allow to carry weapons under the worst situations, deaths are waiting to happen and you're next, referring to a caller, I think it was a caller from Phoenix.
Yeah.
Apparently his city, he doesn't want his city to have revenue from out-of-towners, as he calls them.
Well, he sure hasn't helped the Chamber of Commerce, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's outrageous.
That's the only word for it, Jenny, absolutely. I just was absolutely flabbergasted when I heard what he said. I just couldn't comprehend it. And this man's an attorney.
Yep.
An attorney. And, I mean, the Second Amendment is a foundational principle of the document by which our careers as attorneys rest upon, and he doesn't get it.
Yeah, he does. I mean, and whether you own a gun or you don't, after you listen to what this man had to say, you got to be concerned about what's going to go on in your city. I mean, how can you trust somebody to lead?
He has this mentality that a lot of more liberal politicians have, that he wants the citizenry to be sheep, and that we should, put our confidence in the police force and in the government. History tells us that never works. What's
been the reaction from the community? I mean, have you gotten any emails? Are you hearing phone calls? What have you been hearing?
All kinds of stuff. I get just a little, blip of all the reaction, because as general counsel, we have separate offices at OFCC. Right. And I'm getting just flooded with phone calls and various emails. Even in my private practice, my clients will call me and say, hey, did you hear about the Canton thing? And OFCC overall is just getting bombarded by people in support of the victim here, which is the defendant, ironically.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true. And I think when people saw what happened, they said, hey, that could have been me. And that could be me.
Absolutely. He's in a bad part of the neighborhood, and that makes him a criminal, apparently.
Yep. And I know that the last time I talked with Jeff Garvis, the donations were pouring in and to help this man, William Bartlett, who was stopped by this officer. Does it look like the prosecutor is going to proceed with the case?
I took Candace yesterday. I'm not directly involved with the defense of the victim here. But from my knowledge is that it looks like it's going forward. I think August 1st is the next pretrial date over there in Canton. And my understanding was that they did offer to dismiss it, but I haven't confirmed that, as he promised not to sue the city.
He
rejected that.
Well, considering what happened to him, I can understand.
Right.
And nothing have you now? I know you just put out this resignation right today.
Yes, that I think went live this morning on our website.
So nothing from the council president yet?
No, I haven't heard of anything. Not at this point.
The officer's on, he's been suspended. I really wonder what this police chief is going to end up doing, because he was not happy at all with what he saw, what he heard. I mean, he was very, very upset about it and said, this ain't the way we do things around here.
Yeah, and again, the police chief, I think he said the right things, but this president of the council said all the wrong things.
No.
And the one thing that made me the most irate is he didn't come out like the chief did and reprimand or say that this was wrong. He didn't say anything like that. He actually almost condoned his actions.
That's a good point. But the first thing he did, come right out of the gate and say, hey, this whole concealed carrying, it's insane. That's what he said.
Yeah, I think I have a quote here. He says, these laws, quote unquote, are completely insane.
Yep. And that's a city leader for you.
Yeah, and the last thing that your listeners should know is that this man is running unopposed in the next election.
Oh, wow. Well, you got to do something with this resignation, because it really is a disturbing situation to hear somebody go public with this kind of rant and emotion, obviously driven by that, and speaking to a public that is so concerned about what they saw.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just no words. The more I think about it, I'm just at a loss.